They thought it was just another lecture. But then a 5-year-old raised his hand and asked a question that silenced the brightest minds at Harvard. Harvard, early winter. Outside, the snow hadn't begun yet, but the air already carried the kind of sharpness that hinted at its arrival. Inside Sanders Hall, the old wooden beams hummed faintly with the weight of 100 years of knowledge. The room smelled of chalk, leather, and faint coffee, the familiar scent of academic pursuit. It was a morning like any other. Or it should have been. Professor Nathan Hale stood at the front of the grand auditorium, tall and precise, a figure revered across the world of mathematics. His voice carried the tone of someone who had long since stopped trying to impress and had nothing left to prove. On the screen behind him danced a series of recursive diagrams, loops folding within loops, arrows circling back through layers of logic. The title of the lecture read, Recursive Loop Instability in Time-Bound Systems. Rows of graduate students and visiting scholars filled the room, notebooks open, minds tuned sharply. No one noticed the small figure in the very last row. At least not yet. He sat alone, legs swinging beneath the old wooden bench. His yellow hoodie looked as though it had been washed one too many times, threads frayed at the cuffs, a small tear near the pocket. His brown hair was tousled, as if the morning had been rushed. Beside him, an untouched half of a peanut butter sandwich lay wrapped in wax paper. His name was Eli Turner, 5 years old. Not a student, not an invited guest. He was there because his mother, Anna Turner, had no one to watch him that day. Anna worked the early shift cleaning the halls of Harvard. Sanders Hall was her first assignment that morning. The supervisor, accustomed to such realities, had shrugged and said, "As long as he's quiet, he can sit in the back." And so Eli sat, quiet as a shadow. But his hands weren't idle. On a battered cardboard-covered notebook, he drew loops, circles within circles. Not perfect, but deliberate. Each one slightly different. None of them closed completely. At the front, Professor Hale continued. The core issue isn't recursion itself. It's when the recursion refuses to stabilize, when the loop becomes displaced from its initial state. Eli looked up, pencil pausing mid-stroke. He didn't understand recursion, but he understood circles. He tilted his head, squinted, frowned softly, and then, slowly, he raised his hand. At first, no one noticed. The sea of adults focused on formulas and theories did not expect a child to interrupt. But slowly, the stillness around him made his small, raised hand impossible to ignore. A graduate student in row 3 turned. A visiting fellow furrowed his brow. Finally, Professor Hale caught the motion from the corner of his eye and stopped mid-sentence. "Yes?" he asked, voice tinged with curiosity. "Do you have a question, young man?" Eli lowered his hand slightly, but his voice, when it came, was clear, though soft. "Why does the loop never go home?" The room froze. For a moment, even the faint hum of the projector seemed to vanish. Professor Hale blinked, then repeated slowly, "Why does the loop never go home?" Eli nodded, small brow furrowed. "It keeps going and going, but it never ends up where it started. Isn't it tired?" A few scattered chuckles flickered through the room, the nervous laughter of those unsure how to process the unexpected. But Professor Hale didn't laugh. He stared at the boy longer this time, not with condescension, not with amusement, but with something closer to awe. Then, without a word, he turned back to the board. He wiped away the elaborate diagram with the edge of his sleeve and drew a single loop, then broke it, deliberately, bending the end back not to the beginning, but to the center. "What if recursion isn't broken?" Hale said softly, more to himself than to the room. "But homesick." No one laughed now. The atmosphere shifted, subtle, electric. Eli returned to his notebook and drew a new spiral, one that curled inward, soft, open. A spiral that seemed to know where it wanted to rest. At the end of the lecture, Professor Hale didn't linger at the podium. Instead, he walked straight to the back of the hall, to Anna Turner, startled, clutching her cleaning cart. "Is this your son?" he asked. "Yes. I'm sorry if he—" "No," Hale interrupted gently. "I'm not here to complain. I'd like to speak with him again this afternoon, in my office." Anna hesitated. "Why?" Hale met her gaze. "Because today, your son taught Harvard something it forgot." Anna Turner sat alone in the small break room beneath Widener Library. The clock on the wall ticked with a sound too loud for the room. Her coffee sat untouched in a thin paper cup, the steam long since faded. Her hands, roughened by years of cleaning solvents, trembled slightly as she traced the rim of the cup. "Because today, your son taught Harvard something it forgot." The words echoed in her mind, looping like the spirals Eli drew in his notebook. She couldn't quite make sense of it. Her son, 5 years old. Her boy who still needed help tying his shoes, who slept with a small stuffed fox named Oliver, who hummed when he was thinking. That boy had somehow stopped a lecture hall full of scholars. And now a Harvard professor wanted to meet with him. In private. Anna exhaled slowly. The fear pressed sharp beneath her ribs, not because of Eli's question, but because she knew what the world did to children who didn't fit its boxes. She had learned that lesson young. At 17, Anna had dreamed of college, not Harvard, that had felt like another planet, but UMass Amherst. She had been accepted. For weeks, the acceptance letter had lived folded inside her battered copy of The Great Gatsby. She remembered sitting in the town library, fingers tracing the spines of reference books she wasn't allowed to check out, imagining a life where her days were filled with ideas instead of bleach and mops. And then, 2 pink lines. A silence thicker than shame. Her father's voice, flat and final. "Guess you're not leaving anymore." She hadn't fought. Not really. She'd folded the acceptance letter, placed it inside an old Bible she no longer opened, and started working. And then came Eli. He had arrived quiet and wide-eyed, a boy who seemed to see the spaces between things. Other toddlers stacked blocks. Eli traced circles. Other kids asked, "Why is the sky blue?" Eli asked, "Why does the sky stop?" It had terrified her, and yet it had saved her. In those first hard years, Eli had been her reason to move forward. But she had also known the world was not gentle with children like him, boys who saw patterns in everything, boys who asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. "Gifted," some whispered. "Weird," others said louder. And Anna, fiercely protective, achingly aware of her own failures, had vowed to keep him safe from both praise and cruelty. Until this morning. Now, a door she'd never imagined had swung open, and she didn't know whether to pull Eli through or slam it shut. The break room door creaked. Anna looked up as one of the janitorial staff, Manuel, kind-eyed and quiet, entered with a radio tucked under one arm. "You okay?" he asked gently. Anna forced a smile. "Fine, just tired." But Manuel lingered, sensing more. "I heard about the boy," he said softly. "They're talking already." Anna's breath caught. "Not in a bad way," he added quickly. "They say he asked a question no one could answer." He's 5, Anna whispered. He shouldn't be making the news. Manuel shrugged. Sometimes the smallest stones make the biggest ripples. Later that afternoon, Anna walked hand in hand with Eli across Harvard Yard. The December air bit at her cheeks. She had wrapped Eli's scarf twice around his neck, but his small fingers were still cold inside her glove. He skipped beside her, oblivious to the weight in her chest. "Are we going to the Loop, Professor?" he asked brightly. Anna swallowed. "Yes, sweetheart." "Will I get to draw?" "Maybe. But remember, you don't have to do anything you don't want to." Eli nodded solemnly, as though considering a great responsibility. Anna squeezed his hand tighter. Room 314, Mathematics Building. The door stood open. Inside, Professor Nathan Hale stood at the whiteboard, back turned, marker in hand. He was drawing a figure 8, looping, intersecting, imperfect. When he heard them, he turned. "Right on time," he said with a warm nod. "Come in." Anna hesitated at the threshold. "Should I wait outside?" Hale shook his head. "No, you should see this." They entered quietly. Eli's eyes went wide at the tall shelves of books and the endless expanse of whiteboard. Hale gestured to a small chair near the board. "Eli, yesterday you asked a question that made me rethink a problem I've been working on for over a decade. That doesn't happen often." Eli blinked. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," Hale said softly. "You revealed." He handed Eli a green marker. "Would you show me the loop you were drawing yesterday? The way you see it?" Eli hesitated only a moment. Then, small fingers gripping the marker carefully, he stepped up to the board, slow, deliberate strokes, a wide spiral looping inward, another beside it, twisting back through its own path. Not traditional math, not formula, movement, feeling, memory. Anna watched, heart aching. This was her son, fully himself, and for the first time in her life, someone wasn't trying to fix that. Professor Hale studied the spirals in silence. Then he turned to Anna. "Do you know what this is?" She shook her head. It's just how his brain works. He sees patterns. Always has." "So do I," Hale said quietly. "But not like this." Anna swallowed hard. "We are not from this world." "What world is that?" Hale asked gently. "The one where people sit in rooms like this, where chalkboards aren't used to track cleaning schedules." Hale smiled faintly. "If your son doesn't belong here, then neither do I." Anna met his gaze, eyes shining with unshed tears. She wanted to believe him, but belief came hard when the world had taught you otherwise. Before she could speak, Eli traced a small point near the center of his spiral. "This part here," he whispered. "This is where it remembers." Hale leaned forward. "Remembers what?" "Where it started," Eli said simply. Anna's breath caught. Maybe, just maybe, her son wasn't meant to fit inside the world. Maybe the world needed to bend just a little to fit him. That night, Anna barely slept. After the meeting in Professor Hale's office, she had brought Eli home through the frost-tipped streets of Cambridge. The boy had walked beside her, small hand tucked in hers, humming softly, the same low tune he always made when he was thinking deeply. But Anna's mind was far louder. "I'd like to meet with him again, regularly," Hale had said before they left. "Why?" Anna had asked. "Because I think he sees something most of us have forgotten to look for." It sounded beautiful and terrifying. Anna had seen how people looked at Eli when he spoke in metaphors. She had seen the sideways glances, the tight smiles. Gifted, different, odd, and worse, the moments when teachers stopped listening altogether. After dinner, Eli had taken his battered notebook and sat cross-legged on the worn carpet, drawing spirals, page after page. Anna had watched from the kitchen, heart full and aching. "Did you like meeting the professor?" she asked gently. Eli nodded without looking up. "He listens different," he said simply. Anna swallowed. "How do you mean?" "He listens like a loop," Eli said, eyes tracing the page. "Not like a line." Anna didn't fully understand, but she knew it mattered. The next morning, the phone rang just after dawn. Anna, bleary-eyed, picked up. "Mrs. Turner? Nathan Hale." She tensed. "Yes?" "I hope this isn't too forward," Hale said. "But there's an informal faculty colloquium this afternoon. A small session where we discuss current challenges. I'd like to invite you both. No pressure. Eli wouldn't be expected to speak." Anna hesitated. "I know it's a lot," Hale continued, "but I think it would be good for him to be in the room, to see that questions are welcome here." "And the others?" Anna asked softly. "Some will understand," Hale admitted. "Some won't. But that's true of any room worth being in." Anna exhaled. "We'll come," she said quietly. That afternoon, as they walked toward the mathematics building, Anna gripped Eli's hand a little tighter. He wore his yellow hoodie again, the one with the small tear near the wrist. Anna had tried to convince him to wear something nicer. "It still remembers me this way," he'd said simply. She hadn't argued. Room 217 wasn't large. A dozen faculty and a handful of graduate students were scattered in the old wooden chairs. Professor Hale greeted them at the door, eyes warm beneath furrowed brows. "Sit wherever you're comfortable," he said. Anna chose a corner seat, away from the others. Eli climbed into the chair beside her, notebook in his lap. Whispers flickered through the room. A few curious glances. One outright stare, but Hale took the floor without delay. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I wanted to share a conceptual shift I've been exploring, sparked in part by an unexpected question." He gestured to the whiteboard, where a simple spiral had been drawn. "This is not a formula," he said. "It's a reminder, a loop that remembers." A few skeptical looks. A graduate student in the front row frowned. "What does that mean?" someone asked. "I'll explain," Hale said. "But first, Eli?" Anna's breath caught, but Eli looked up calmly. "Would you show them the spiral you drew yesterday?" Hale asked gently. Without hesitation, Eli slid from his chair and approached the board. Small fingers gripped the green marker. He drew slow, steady lines. A spiral looping inward, then folding back upon itself, not closed, not broken, breathing. "This is where it remembers," Eli said softly, pointing to a point near the center. The room shifted, not all in understanding, but in attention. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a voice broke the silence. "Is this mathematics or poetry?" A few chuckles. Anna stiffened, but Hale smiled faintly. "Sometimes the boundary is thinner than we think," he said. He turned to the board, drawing an overlay onto Eli's spiral. "Recursive systems often fail not because they loop, but because they forget where they began. Eli reminded me of that." Another voice, clipped, skeptical. "Professor Hale, are we seriously entertaining conceptual models drawn by a child?" Anna's stomach clenched, but before Hale could reply, Eli spoke quietly. "I didn't draw to teach," he said. "I drew because the loop asked me to listen." A hush fell again. Anna's throat tightened. Her son, 5 years old, standing before a room of Harvard minds, unafraid to speak his truth. And they were listening, not all with kindness, not all with belief, but they were listening. After the session, Hale approached Anna as the others filtered out. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded shakily. "I'm not sure what world we've stepped into," she admitted. "Neither am I," Hale said softly. "But I think it's one worth exploring." He knelt briefly to Eli's level. "You don't have to come again if you don't want to," he said. Eli looked up, thoughtful. "Loops that remember," he said softly. "I want to see what else they remember." Anna swallowed. There it was, the choice made. And deep inside, beneath the fear and uncertainty, a small thread of pride began to spiral outward. Room 314 was empty again. The spirals Eli had drawn during the faculty session still shimmered faintly beneath the afternoon light. Professor Nathan Hale stood alone in the room, hands in his pockets, staring at the board. "A loop that remembers." He said the words softly, as though testing their weight in the air. Behind him, the murmurs of the earlier session still echoed faintly in his ears. Poetry, sentiment, a child's doodle. But Hale had seen something else, not in the lines themselves, but in the space between them, a kind of listening, a kind of patience. And in Eli's eyes, not the need to impress or explain, but the quiet certainty of one who understood more than he could say. That evening, Hale sat in his study, fire crackling low in the hearth. An untouched glass of scotch rested beside an open journal. His mind was restless. For years, he had fought to tame recursive models, to force them into stability through external constraints. But Eli's simple question, "Why does the loop never go home?" had cracked something open. Because it forgets. Or perhaps, because it was never taught how to return. Hale scribbled diagrams late into the night, spirals overlaying algorithms, feedback loops bent inward, not just outward, not mere repetition, but remembrance. Somewhere past midnight, he wrote on the margin of the page, "Recursive failure is not mathematical error, it is existential displacement." He sat back, exhaling slowly. "And sometimes," he whispered, "it takes a child to see it." The next morning, the ripples began. A graduate student from the session had posted a single blurred photo online. Eli at the whiteboard, small figure beneath towering equations. No name, no context. Just the caption, "Sometimes wisdom wears a yellow hoodie." Within hours, the image had spread quietly through Harvard's academic circles. Some responded with curiosity, others with dismissal, and some with unease. Meanwhile, Anna Turner walked Harvard Yard with Eli, heart caught between worlds. The boy skipped ahead, notebook clutched to his chest. "Are we going back to the loop room?" he asked. Anna swallowed. "Professor Hale said we could visit again. If you'd like." "I want to see what the board remembers today," Eli said simply. Anna blinked back sudden tears. Every instinct in her screamed to protect him, to pull him back before the world's harsh edges reached him. But how could she close a door he was already walking through, with wonder in every step? Room 314. Hale greeted them with a tired but genuine smile. "I'm glad you came," he said softly. The whiteboard had been wiped clean, save for a small spiral in the corner. "A reminder," Hale said, "that some lines shouldn't be erased." Eli's eyes lit up. "Can I draw again?" "Of course." Anna settled into the same corner chair, watching as her son approached the board. This time his lines were slower, more layered. Loops folding back upon loops, some tight, some wide, all breathing. Hale watched in silence, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "He draws like the system wants to speak," he murmured. Anna glanced at him. "Do you really think this is mathematics?" she asked softly. Hale smiled faintly. Mathematics is just another way of listening, he said. And Eli hears something most of us have forgotten how to hear. But not everyone shared his wonder. Later that afternoon, in the faculty lounge, Hale overheard the first sharp edges of resistance. "Have you seen this nonsense going around?" one professor scoffed, waving a printed copy of the photo. "We're a university, not a nursery. Bringing children into theoretical discussions, it's a dangerous precedent." Hale said nothing, not yet. But a quiet determination settled deeper within him. Some loops, he thought, were meant to be challenged, some spirals, to be protected. That evening, Anna found a sealed envelope slipped beneath her apartment door, no return address. Inside, a single typed sentence. "Your son's presence threatens the integrity of this institution." No signature, no courage. Anna stared at the words, hands trembling. She read them twice. Then, with deliberate fingers, tore the paper in half, and again, until the pieces fell like snow into the trash. Late that night, as Eli slept curled beside his notebook, Anna sat by the window, watching frost trace quiet spirals across the glass. Her heart was a storm of fear and pride. "Is this a door?" she whispered to the dark. "Or a trap?" But somewhere deep inside, a softer voice answered, "Maybe some doors lead to places we're meant to find, even if we're afraid." She rose, kissed Eli's brow gently, and whispered, "Wherever the loop takes you, my love, may you always remember where you began." The email came at dawn. "Internal colloquium, today at 2 p.m. Faculty Lounge, Mathematics Department. Topic: recursive loop instability and emergent conceptual models." It was terse, formal. But between the lines, Nathan Hale read the unspoken, "Come explain yourself, and perhaps, come defend that child." He closed his laptop with a sigh. Across the small kitchen, Anna Turner poured coffee with shaking hands. She had seen the glances on campus the day before, heard the whispers. A janitor's son. Harvard's latest indulgence. Dangerous precedent. Now this. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I do," Hale replied. "And so do you, if you're willing." Anna hesitated, then looked toward the couch, where Eli sat cross-legged with his notebook, humming softly as he traced spirals. "If we don't go," she whispered, "they'll write the story without us." Hale nodded. "Exactly." At 1:45 p.m., the faculty lounge buzzed with a tension rare even for Harvard. Senior professors filled the worn leather chairs. Graduate students lined the back walls. Deans occupied the front row, expressions carefully neutral. And in the corner, Anna and Eli. She had dressed him in his cleanest clothes, a soft gray sweater, dark jeans, the yellow hoodie folded carefully in her bag. But Eli had insisted on bringing his notebook. "The loops remember better if I'm there too," he had said. Anna's heart thudded painfully in her chest as they entered the room. "Just be yourself," she whispered. "That's enough." Eli nodded solemnly. At precisely 2 p.m., Professor Hale took the floor. "Thank you for coming," he began, voice calm but firm. "As you know, recent discussions have emerged around recursive loop models, sparked in part by a question asked during my recent lecture." A low murmur flickered through the room. "Today, I will not present a formal proof," Hale continued. "I will present a perspective, one I believe merits consideration." He gestured to the whiteboard where a single spiral had been drawn. "Recursive systems don't fail because they loop. They fail when they forget where they began. When the loop is displaced from its origin, when it loses memory, instability arises." He paused. "This was brought to my attention not by an algorithm, not by a theorem, but by a 5-year-old. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the audience. The boy is here today, with his mother, at my invitation. All eyes turned. Anna's breath caught. She gripped Eli's hand tightly, but the boy sat calm, eyes wide, notebook open. Some of you will argue this is sentiment. I will argue it is insight, Hale said, because insight, at its core, is the ability to see what others overlook. We've spent years forcing recursive loops into stability through external constraints, Hale continued, diagrams blooming beneath his chalk. But what if the problem isn't constraint? What if it's memory? He overlaid Eli's spiral atop a traditional loop model. When Eli drew this, he said, "This is where it remembers." That simple statement reframed my entire model. A voice broke the growing hush. "Professor Hale," came a sharp tone from Dr. Leonard Shaw, a senior faculty member known for his rigor and his scorn for what he deemed soft thinking. "Are we seriously reconstructing mathematical models based on a child's metaphor?" A few nods of agreement followed. Hale met Shaw's gaze steadily. "No," he said. "I am reconstructing them based on what the metaphor revealed about the limitations of our current models. We've been dismissing anomalies as computational noise, but perhaps they are echoes of forgotten origins." Another voice, clipped, cool. "And are we to assume this child understands the implications of what he's drawn?" Anna stiffened. But before Hale could answer, Eli stood, small figure in the sea of towering intellects. "I didn't draw it to be understood," he said softly. "I drew it because the loop asked me to listen." The room stilled. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Shaw snorted. "Poetry," he muttered. "Not mathematics." Hale turned to the room. "Perhaps. But perhaps mathematics needs poetry, if it is to remember why it began." Dean Margaret Cole, who had remained silent thus far, finally spoke. "Professor Hale, what do you propose?" "I propose we revisit our models with this lens," Hale said, "and that we do so with humility, because sometimes wisdom arrives in unexpected forms." He glanced toward Eli, whose gaze remained calm, unshaken. "And because if we dismiss the voices that remind us to listen, we risk becoming loops that can no longer find home." When the session ended, the room fractured. Some filed out in thoughtful silence. Others muttered darkly beneath their breath. Anna rose slowly, legs trembling. "You were very brave," she whispered to Eli. "I wasn't brave," he said simply. "I just listened." She gathered him close, heart full to breaking. Across the room, Hale watched them and saw the loop he was now part of: a child, a mother, a question, an echo. And Harvard, whether ready or not, was listening. The day after the colloquium, Harvard buzzed, emails flew, rumors bloomed like frost beneath the ivy-clad walls. "Did you see it? The boy, the spiral, poetry in the math department. What's next?" No one said it outright. But the undercurrent was clear. Who let this happen? Who is responsible? And always, beneath the words, how can we stop it? Anna Turner heard the whispers before she saw the stairs. That morning, as she pushed her cleaning cart through Widener Library, conversations faltered as she passed. Some eyes averted, some lingered too long, and in one of the staff lounges, a stray sentence landed like a blow. "Janitor's son or not, Harvard isn't a playground." Anna's hands gripped the cart until her knuckles whitened. "I'm here to work," she whispered to herself. "Just work." But the world no longer let her move unseen. At home, things shifted too. A neighbor knocked at their door, breathless. "Is this your son?" she asked, phone screen glowing. There it was, Eli's small face beside a blurred image of his spiral. The boy who asked Harvard's hardest question. Anna closed the door gently, locked it, then sat on the couch, head in her hands. God, what have we done? Meanwhile, Eli noticed. He noticed everything. Why are people staring now? He asked softly that evening, notebook open on the floor. Anna knelt beside him. Because you asked a beautiful question, she said carefully, and the world isn't always kind to beauty it doesn't understand. Eli was quiet for a long time, then traced a slow spiral across the page. If they don't understand it, should I stop drawing? Anna's throat tightened. No, sweetheart, never stop drawing. But the outside world pressed harder. An anonymous email arrived 2 days later. Your son is a distraction. Harvard is not a stage for parlor tricks. No name, no sender. Anna read it twice, then burned it in the kitchen sink. Professor Hale called that night. How are you both holding up? He asked gently. We're fine, Anna lied. You're not, Hale said softly. And that's okay. This wasn't what I wanted for him, Anna whispered. I know. I just wanted him to be safe, to be whole. He still is, Hale said, but sometimes wholeness means walking through the noise. Anna exhaled shakily. I'm afraid they'll break him. Then we'll hold the line, Hale said. Together. Yet the noise kept growing. A short video clip from the colloquium leaked. Eli's small voice echoed across the internet. I drew it because the loop asked me to listen. Some called it brilliance. Others called it folly. But everyone watched. Eli noticed even more now. Mom, he asked one afternoon, why do they want my words if they don't want me? Anna knelt, heartbreaking. Because your words remind them of something they forgot, she said softly. Is that bad? No, baby, Anna whispered, tears burning. But remembering can be painful. That night, Anna lay awake long after Eli had drifted to sleep, curled beside his spiral-strewn notebook. She watched the moonlight trace pale arcs across the ceiling. I should take him away, she thought. I should pull him from this place before they turn his wonder into a weapon. But even as the thought formed, another voice rose within her, quieter, but steadier. And if you do, what then? Will the loops stop calling him? She knew the answer. They wouldn't. Eli had always listened where others didn't, and the loops had always spoken back. She rose, kissed his brow, and whispered, No matter what comes, my love, remember the loops are yours, not theirs. The next morning, an unexpected letter arrived. Thick cream envelope, elegant handwriting, no postmark. Inside, a single sheet. From the Institute for Advanced Study, we have seen the echoes. We would like to offer a space for Eli, not for show, not for performance, but for listening, for breathing, for understanding. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Some loops belong among the trees. Anna stared at the words, heart pounding. Across the room, Eli looked up from his notebook. Mom, he asked softly. Are the loops calling again? Anna's eyes filled. Maybe, she whispered. Maybe they are. The train to Princeton hummed steadily beneath them, a soft rhythmic sound that seemed to echo the spirals Eli loved to draw. Anna sat by the window, fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee cup. Beside her, Eli leaned forward, face pressed to the glass, eyes wide with wonder. Are we going far? He asked softly. A little, Anna replied, to a place where the loops can breathe. Eli smiled faintly. Loops like trees? He asked. Anna swallowed. Maybe, she whispered. Maybe just like that. The invitation had come like a quiet echo through the noise. We believe some loops belong among the trees. Dr. Evelyn Hart, a senior fellow at the Institute for Advanced Study, had written with a kind, steady hand. No cameras, no press, No performance, just space. Anna had hesitated at first, but Hale had urged her gently. They mean it. And I think Eli needs a place where listening matters more than explaining. Now, as the train neared Princeton, Anna felt the weight of all the fear and pride she carried coiling tighter within her. Please, she thought silently, please let this be a place where he can simply be. Princeton greeted them with quiet grace. No reporters, no curious crowds, just tall trees swaying gently in the cold winter air, their branches bending like living spirals. Dr. Hart met them at the gate, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to see through pretense. "Welcome," she said softly. Eli looked up at her. "Do the Loops live here?" he asked. Hart smiled. "In every branch, in every leaf," she replied. Eli beamed. Anna's eyes filled with sudden tears. Their first stop was the Institute's fractal garden, a hidden space where trees had been pruned into recursive patterns, paths looping gently between them. "Here," Hart explained, "we study patterns that breathe, not just those that repeat." Eli walked slowly among the branches, fingertips brushing the air. "It's a loop that breathes," he whispered. Hart knelt beside him. "Exactly." Anna watched them, heart aching and soaring all at once. He belongs here, she thought, at least for a little while. Over the next 3 days, no one asked Eli to perform. No cameras, no tests, no forced explanations. Instead, he wandered the grounds, drawing spirals in his notebook, listening to the wind, speaking when he wished. In the evenings, he sat with Hart in the quiet study, asking questions that danced between logic and poetry. Why do some loops close and others open? Because not every path wants to return the same way, Hart would answer. Do loops ever forget? Only if we stop listening. Anna watched each exchange with a heart stretched thin between awe and longing. For the first time in weeks, Eli's eyes shone without the shadow of scrutiny. Here, she thought, he is not strange. He is home. On the final evening, as twilight painted the garden in soft silver hues, Eli and Hart sat beneath the oldest tree, its branches a living spiral against the sky. "Dr. Hart," Eli asked softly, "what if loops don't need to be solved?" Hart smiled gently. "They don't," she replied. "They need to be understood." Eli nodded, tracing a small spiral in the dirt. "Then I'll keep listening," he whispered. That night, as Anna packed their things, Hart spoke quietly beside her. "You've raised a remarkable child," she said. Anna's throat tightened. "I didn't raise him to be remarkable," she whispered. "I raised him to survive." Hart met her gaze. "And yet, here he is, reminding us all what it means to listen." Anna swallowed hard. "But the world outside, it's loud and cruel." "Yes," Hart said softly. "But some echoes are strong enough to carry through the noise." She placed a hand gently on Anna's shoulder. "And he won't carry them alone." As they boarded the train back to Boston the next morning, Eli leaned against Anna, head on her shoulder. "Mom?" he murmured sleepily. "Yes, baby? When loops forget? Can they learn to remember again?" Anna blinked back tears. "I think that's what listening is for," she whispered. Eli smiled faintly, eyes drifting closed. And as the train hummed through the winter landscape, Anna held him close, heart steadier than it had been in weeks. Let the world say what it will, she thought. We'll listen. We'll remember. But back at Harvard, the echoes had grown louder. As they stepped off the train, Professor Hale greeted them with a troubled look. "It's spreading," he said quietly. "The video?" Anna asked. Hale nodded grimly. And invitations are pouring in. Zurich, the Global Recursive Summit, others. Anna's breath caught. We can say no, Hale said quickly. But it's an opportunity and a risk. Anna looked down at Eli, still clutching his spiral-covered notebook. I won't force him, she said softly. Nor will I, Hale replied. But if he chooses to speak, the world will be listening. The email arrived on a gray morning. Zurich, the Global Recursive Summit, 2,000 attendees. 300 speakers, dozens of languages, and one child. No demands, no press obligations, just an invitation, handwritten beneath the official letterhead, Your voice matters. If you wish to share it, the stage is yours. Anna read the letter 3 times, heart pounding. Zurich, she whispered. It sounded like another planet. Too large, too loud. I won't force him, she told Hale later. Nor will I, Hale agreed. But if he chooses, I will be there. So will you. At home, Anna unfolded the letter beside Eli, hands trembling. They want you to speak, she said softly. In Zurich. Eli looked up from his notebook, brow furrowed. Speak with words, if you want, or with whatever helps them hear you. Eli thought for a long moment. Can I draw instead? He asked. Anna smiled through tears. You can do whatever helps the world listen. Zurich greeted them beneath a soft snowfall. The city glittered beneath slate-gray skies, lights twinkling like distant stars. At the summit venue, a vast auditorium shaped like an ear, tiered in wide curves, the air buzzed with electric anticipation. Eli clutched his worn notebook, yellow hoodie peeking beneath his coat. Are you ready? Hale asked gently. I think the loops are, Eli replied. Anna's heart twisted. Please, she thought, let the world be kind. Backstage, Hale crouched beside Eli. You remember, you don't have to say anything you don't want to. I know, Eli said softly. He held up a single piece of chalk. This is enough. Anna knelt, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. Just be yourself, baby, she whispered. Eli smiled faintly. I'm always myself, he said. When the announcement came, Harvard's quietest voice, Eli Turner. The auditorium stilled. A sea of scholars leaned forward. A child? Came the murmurs. The one from the video. The loop boy. But when Eli stepped onto the stage, small figure beneath the towering lights, the room fell utterly silent. No clapping, no laughter, just breath held tight. Anna watched from the wings, heart in her throat. Please. Eli walked past the podium, past the chair, straight to the massive whiteboard installed just for him. He stood for a long moment, staring at the blank expanse. Then, slowly, he uncapped the chalk. Not a diagram, a spiral, one line, breathing, then a second, and a pulse. He stepped back, drew a circle around it all, loose, open, then turned to face the audience. On the screen behind him, a single sentence appeared, handwritten by Eli hours before. The loudest truths never shout. They return like breath. The auditorium remained silent. No applause, no outburst, just a hush that felt like leaning forward. Anna felt tears break free, sliding unchecked down her cheeks. Beside her, Hale exhaled slowly. He did it, he whispered. In his way. Eli bowed, small, simple, then walked off stage, into Anna's waiting arms. You were perfect, she whispered, voice breaking. I just listened, Eli said softly. Hale crouched beside them. The world heard you, Eli, he said. Some loops are loud now, Eli murmured. But that's okay. By evening, the clip had already gone viral. Child redefines recursion with a spiral. The quietest voice from Harvard stuns Zurich. The loudest truths never shout. At their hotel that night, Anna watched Eli sleep, one small hand resting on his notebook. Was it enough? She wondered, but deep inside she knew. It wasn't about being enough. It was about listening, about letting the loop breathe. She kissed his brow softly. And you did, my love. You did. But as the snow fell heavier outside, Anna also knew. The world would not let them go quietly now. And tomorrow, the next loop would begin. The morning after Zurich, the world was no longer quiet. Across continents and screens, Eli's simple spiral had ignited a firestorm. The loudest truths never shout. Headlines bloomed in every language. News anchors debated recursion and poetry. Think pieces flooded academic journals. A 5-year-old reframes the foundations of recursion. Harvard's spiral boy stuns Zurich. Is this education or performance art? Anna watched the news with hollow eyes. It's too much, she whispered to Hale. I know, he said. We can shield him, for now. But even shielding had limits. Their return to Boston was met with crowds. Photographers camped outside their apartment. Requests flooded in, interviews, book deals, documentaries. Zurich was enough, Anna told them all. No more. But the world didn't ask permission. One morning a letter arrived. No signature, no return address. Your son's presence threatens the credibility of this institution. Anna read it twice, then burned it in the sink, hands shaking. But the harshest blow came from within Harvard. A formal notice arrived from the administration. Given the media attention surrounding Eli Turner, we must reconsider his presence within university spaces. No direct ban, no explicit rejection, but the message was clear. You are no longer welcome here. Hale was furious. Cowards, he spat. After all, he gave them. Anna sat in silence, heart breaking. Maybe. It's time, she whispered. Hale looked at her, eyes softening. You don't have to run, he said. I'm not running, Anna replied. I'm listening, and I think it's time for Eli to find his own loop. That night, Anna found Eli sitting by the window, notebook in his lap, snow swirling outside. Mom? He asked softly. Yes, baby. Can loops choose where they go? Anna swallowed. I think the best ones do, she whispered. Eli traced a small spiral on the window pane. Then I think I want to find a new one, he said. Anna's throat tightened. Are you sure? Eli nodded. The loops here are too loud now. I can't hear them anymore. Within a week, they were gone. No press conference, no farewell, just a quiet departure. A mother and son slipping between the cracks of the world's noise. Hale received a single message. Thank you for listening. We will be okay. He stood in his empty office, hands trembling. You deserve better, he whispered. But you chose better. Rumors spread quickly. Eli Turner has disappeared. No one knows where. Some said Japan. Others swore they saw him sketching spirals in the chalk deserts of Bolivia. No photos surfaced, no interviews followed, just silence. But in a small, forgotten town called Bel Air, tucked between mountains and mist, a quiet story began to unfold. The local library had long been boarded shut, dust thick on its windows. Then, one fall morning, a stranger arrived, not in a car, on foot, a teenager, maybe 16, green hoodie, no phone, notebook clutched tight. He began sweeping the library steps, clearing years of debris. Locals watched, curious. But no one approached. Days turned to weeks. The door was unboarded. A handwritten sign appeared. Free evening class. All ages. Welcome, curious. At first, only a few children came, then an old man, then a single mother with 2 jobs. There was no curriculum, no grades, just questions. Why do clouds loop like that? Why do broken things sometimes fit better? Why do we only listen when someone draws instead of talks? And always, the boy listened first. He never said his name. One day, a small girl stayed late, tears in her eyes. "I don't understand the spiral," she sobbed. The boy knelt beside her. "It's okay," he whispered. "Some patterns take longer to hear. But what if it never makes sense?" He smiled gently. "Then maybe it's not supposed to be solved. Maybe it's supposed to be shared." He handed her a piece of chalk. Together, they drew. Later, on the back wall of the library, in small, neat letters, the girl wrote, "This place taught me to listen to what has no words." Back in Boston, Hale visited room 314 one last time. The board was bare now, but beneath the layers of old chalk, faint spirals still whispered. He traced a finger along them, voice soft. Some loops were never meant to stay. They were meant to teach us how to listen. And in Bel Air, once a year on the first snowfall, someone leaves a single spiral drawn in chalk on the library steps. No name, no speech, just a quiet echo, like breath returning home. Months passed. The world moved on. New headlines rose and faded. New prodigies emerged. New controversies consumed the academic circles. But beneath it all, the echo of a small spiral drawn on a whiteboard in Zurich lingered. The loudest truths never shout. They return like breath. Anna returned to quieter work. She cleaned unfamiliar halls now, far from Harvard's ivory towers. People still whispered sometimes, but most had moved on. Only Anna hadn't, not because she longed for fame, but because her heart still listened for the soft hum of her son's spirals. Is he safe? Is he happy? Those were the only questions that mattered. Then, one cold morning, a small package arrived. No postmark, no sender. Anna opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a small spiral-covered notebook and a single folded card, handwritten in careful print. For those who listen, the loops will always find home. Anna pressed the card to her chest, tears falling freely. "He's okay," she whispered. "He's okay." At Harvard, Professor Hale moved slower these days. He had declined most public engagements, refused interviews. "Mathematics," he would say softly, "needs more listening now." But one rainy afternoon, as he entered room 314 out of habit, he froze. The board was no longer bare. In the lower corner, faint, as if drawn by a hand that didn't want to disturb, a new spiral had appeared. Beneath it, 3 words. "Some echoes return." Hale smiled through blurred eyes. "Good," he whispered. "Good." In Bel Air, the small library had changed. The walls now bore spirals drawn by countless hands, children, elders, wanderers. No one taught formal lessons there. But questions bloomed like wildflowers. Why do rivers loop? Why do memories spiral back? Can we hold a pattern without holding it too tightly? And always, the quiet figure in the green hoodie listened first. One evening, a little boy, no older than Eli had once been, stared at a stubborn spiral he couldn't quite draw. Tears welled in his eyes. "It won't work," he whispered. The boy in the hoodie knelt beside him. "It's okay," he said softly. "Some loops need more time. Some need more hands." He placed a gentle hand over the child's, guiding the chalk in a slow, forgiving curve. "See?" he whispered. "You're not alone in the loop." Later, as the first snow began to fall, the boy in the hoodie stepped outside. In the gathering twilight, he drew a single spiral on the library steps, then paused. And beneath it, in small, steady letters, he wrote, If a loop never goes home, maybe it needs a new one. He stood for a long moment, watching the snow kiss the chalk. Then, without fanfare, he walked away into the night. Far away, in her small kitchen, Anna Turner traced the spiral on her son's return notebook, heart full. "Wherever you are, my love," she whispered, "I hear you. I always will." And in room 314, beneath soft chalk dust and long-forgotten formulas, Professor Hale left one final message of his own. Some loops are not meant to close. They are meant to lead us forward, listening. He smiled, closing the door gently behind him. Back in Bel Air the next morning, the little library doors opened once more. Children entered, eager to draw, to ask, to listen. And in the corner, where the spiral on the steps still lingered beneath thin snow, a new message had appeared, written in a child's careful scrawl. "This place taught me to listen to what has no words." And somewhere, beneath the vast sky of a world too noisy, too fast, one small loop kept breathing, quietly, patiently, a loop that had found its way home, the end